I'm Charlie Brooker and you're watching Screenwipe, a programme all about television.
Not sure if you've noticed, but these days men in adverts are regularly treated worse than dogs. Go on, chuck him in the bin, he's just a man. Now, you could get all indignant and say this is man-hating sexism, but the fact of the matter is that all men in adverts these days deserve it, because all men in adverts these days are swaggering blokey cocks. Here's the worst offenders.
At number 10, a smug bell end with a brain full of women and mortgages.
I think mortgages can be simplified.
Take your f***ing hands out of your pockets when you're talking to me.
I think they should be flexible.
I think mortgages should have holes you can put your knob in.
In fact, I think only the best bits.
Cockend.
At number 9, Sudafed, starring a cock so annoying the moment you see him you want to say...
Yuck. This is the actual size of your nasal passages.
No, this is, you f***ing idiot. They've locked him in there just because he's such a arse.
At number 8, oh, love a duck, it's Ray Winston, patronising your face off on behalf of Kellogg's.
When it comes to food, there's a bit of a nanny culture thing going on.
Apples and pears.
Well, don't look at me, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
No, I'm just going to heavily imply it.
At 7, a cocky, preening spokesman for Britain.
The Eiffel Tower.
Blackpool Tower.
Jules Verne, Jean-Paul Sartre, Baudelaire.
Shut the f*** up.
Meet number 6, a self-satisfied f***wipe strutting his way round Marshmallow Town.
Just a blade of grass.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just stepping out the side of a van, yeah, you f***ing idiot.
On TV, the pictures you're seeing often carry more weight than the words you're hearing.
But don't take my word for it, here's a scientist proving the point with a pie chart.
Since pictures are so important, plenty of time is spent making them as impressive as possible. Here, for example, I'm talking to you on raw, ungraded video, which is super sharp, but because it's associated with live TV and quiz shows and the like, feels inherently sort of cheap. Whereas now I'm talking to you from behind a fancy filter and a 25 frames per second film effect, which means the whole thing looks bloody luxurious.
Actually, luxurious is a word you can apply to a lot of modern TV, because the pictures we see today are more polished and tricksy than ever before, almost as glamorous as Hollywood. It's an unreal, televised dreamscape.
Of course, warped on-screen reality isn't exactly anything new.
TV's always shown us things that weren't really there. In the early days, to do this, you had to create a physical prop, like Supercar here, which was super. Go, you lovely supercar, go! Spin forward a few decades and basic video trickery starts to creep in, as seen here in rib-tickling supernatural pantomime Rent-A-Ghost, which made heavy use of basic stop-start editing techniques. A few years later, computers started poking their nose in, enabling vision mixers to muck around with the shape and position of the image to their heart's content.
Of course, when any new technique appears, people tend to go to town using it, which is why the 80s was such a blizzard of spinning screens and wacky warping effects.
We're going to send you up the pole and round the bend now as we bounce your eyeballs all over your living room with the aid of this little box of tricks here, a computerized doodah that sends your picture potty. And here we go. For instance, if you twist the knob round here like that, you can go that way in any direction, at any speed, or the opposite direction like that.
It looks cheesy to us now, but at the time, effects like these made viewers' minds pop like cherry tomatoes on an overheated grill pan. Actually, at the time, the technology didn't quite match up to the program makers' ambitions, and they ended up having to simulate the way futuristic effects might look using old-fashioned means.
The famous Hitchhiker's Guide animations, for instance, looked like super complex computer animations, but were actually lovingly crafted by hand. While wisecracking postmodern chat show icon Max Headroom was really just actor Matt Frewer beneath a heavy layer of latex. In 1986, groundbreaking kids show Nightmare used a combination of blue screen trickery and CGI to create a deadly interactive world in which children were burnt alive.
Nasty.
6 years later, sci-fi epic Babylon 5 was the first show wholly reliant on CGI to create a universe of intergalactic intrigue in which humans converse with boring aliens with shit foreheads. CGI really took off in 1999 with the eye-popping Walking with Dinosaurs, which was truly mind-mangling in its day, but now looks almost commonplace because the schedules are jam-packed with virtual dinosaurs, as you'll see in a moment.
28 years ago, Doctor Who was king. Tom Baker was twice as popular as Jesus Christ, and just about the only people who didn't tune in were demented clock fans, infuriated by his constant meddling with time.
You bastard.
Naturally, ITV regarded Doctor Who with envious eyes, and slowly and surely they drew their plans against him. The result was Sapphire and Steel, a wildly baffling work of metaphysical oddery, which made about as much sense as this.
But you've seen my face. But you've seen my face. But you've seen my face.
Didn't catch on. Now in 2007, with Doctor Who riding high once again, ITV have come up with a more convincing rival. Primeval is unashamed Saturday night populist drama for the masses, and it features something for all the family. There's dinosaurs for the kids, a couple of beefy hunks for mum, a barely legal girl for dad, and the occasional shot of a washing machine for your weird cousin who f***s washing machines. The story revolves around a go-getting bunch of scientists who've discovered a series of mysterious rifts in time which keep popping open, allowing prehistoric monsters into the present day. They're a bit like gatecrashers crawling through a hole in the wall at Glastonbury. Everyone in the team has a clearly defined role. There's Violet Berlin lookalike Abby, a sort of Powerpuff Girl version of Zoe Ball, whose job is to connect with the beasties on an emotional level, look a bit saucy, and lust after the boring hunk one. I don't like the boring hunk one, partly because he's a hunk and therefore the enemy, but mainly because his job seems to consist of being knocked unconscious every few minutes. Anyway, he's clearly only doing it to mess with the pretty one's head and thereby win her affections, and it bloody works, the sly little prick.
I'll have coffee at your place later and stay for breakfast in the morning.
You bugger. The next gang member is Connor, who's the designated wacky one. He's supposed to be an archetypal nerd, although since the actor who plays him is clearly a bit too handsome for this, they've achieved the effect instead by giving him slightly greasy hair and a laptop obsession, and saddling him with some absurdly unrealistic fictional nerdy mates.
Lost it. Totally. That's the saddest thing I've seen since Matrix Revolutions.
Finally, there's Professor Nick Cutter, the explainy one, whose job is to go on and on about the anomaly.
The anomaly.
Thank you. His job is to explain those every few minutes.
The anomaly has a fixed point of origin.
Yes, all right.
The anomalies may be intermittent. And they fade from time to time, but they never completely disappear.
Yeah, thanks.
The anomalies are conclusive proof that the past exists. Thank you, Professor.
And when he's not doing that, he lets off steam by shouting, Helen.
Helen! 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 Helen!
Where are you, Helen?
Helen's his dead wife, except she's not actually dead. She's just living in prehistoric times because she passed through one of the
The anomalies.
Can't we just call it a f***ing time hole? The show is resolutely action-packed. Every episode features furious, incoherent beasts rampaging across contemporary Britain. It's also often genuinely scary. There's an almost perverse emphasis on cosy domestic normality getting smashed to bits, something Doctor Who also does, but rarely to the same extent. Sometimes it's so scary even the cameraman wets himself. And even if you're not scared, you can't help but admire the special effects, which I think are some of the best I've ever seen in a British TV show. There's quite a cute love triangle going on as well. Wacky one's in love with the pretty one, who of course is in love with the hunky one, who's in love with lying around unconscious. This cutesy romance is precisely the sort of thing that would usually strike me as trite and rubbish, but here it's just kind of heartwarming. Don't know what's the matter with me, maybe I've just gone mad. It's not the best show ever made, there's a fair few clunky lines, and sometimes the camera work makes it look as though the whole thing's taking place on a gigantic merry-go-round. Nevertheless, Primeval's far better than I thought it would be. It's certainly far superior to Torchwood, for instance. It's just nice to see, and I'm sorry if that's a bland opinion. F*** you.
At number 5, Chris Marshall and his boring f***ing relationship.
What's this?
BT Home Hub. Adam's got broadband.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I equate broadband services with a chilly, awkward domestic atmosphere, so this is spot on.
Seems nice.
He's not.
CGI and special effects are all very well, but for my money the most significant technological advances have taken place away from the screen in the world of editing.
Video editing used to be a fairly cumbersome process, more difficult than film, which you could easily slice up with razor blades.
Consequently, in ye olden days, there was often more vision mixing than editing. Indoor scenes would be shot in a studio using several cameras, and the director would cut between them, creating an edit on the fly. Exterior scenes used to be shot on 16mm film because it was easier to edit. That's why a lot of old shows, especially comedies, had such a different feel whenever they cut to an outdoor location.
That's an effect that will be familiar to anyone who remembers the peerless Fawlty Towers. True to subversive form, Monty Python even used it as the basis for a very clever sketch.
Gentlemen, I have bad news. This room is surrounded by film. What?
Things changed in the early 90s when hard disk editing arrived to excite this edition of Tomorrow's World.
I can see all the shots here on this screen and they're instantly accessible. And over here on this one, this is where you build up your edited report. You can swap shots over or change them for other ones really easily.
This was a bit like the leap from typewriters to word processors. Suddenly it was a piece of piss to chuck in one edit after another.
The logical conclusion is the hyper-edited bombardment you get in frenetic MTV dating shows like this.
It's also enabled reality shows to exist because now it's possible to go through 24 hours of footage and condense it down to 1 hour of highlights in time for transmission the next day.
Of course, the pressure of time and the need to tell a story means you often end up with a crude caricature of real life, a condensed bullet point version of events that can be easily manipulated to tell almost any story you like. To demonstrate this, we decided to make our own reality show in miniature. Day 1 in the Screenwipe house. The first flatmate to arrive is children's entertainer Jim Bob.
Oh, wicked.
Next in is runner from previous Screenwipe series, Louise.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jim Bob.
Jim Bob, I'm Louise.
Oh, excellent.
Misanthropic TV presenter Charlie is the third flatmate to enter the Screenwipe house.
It's a bit awkward, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should we have a drink?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Last to arrive, glamour model agony aunt and DJ Ashleen.
Hello. Hello, I'm Charlie, hello. What we've ended up with is hours of fairly nondescript footage of us all standing around and jabbering.
It's shot from 3 angles, here, here and here. And we've also got interviews in which each of the flatmates say what they thought of each other. Using these ingredients, we can tinker to an absurd degree.
If we want, we can hunt through it for moments where it looks like Ashleen's flirting with me, as well she might.
Here's one. Here's another one. Oh, and here's another. Oh, she bloody wants me.
Or we could just cherry-pick the moments where it looks like she's not that impressed at all. That's just highlighting a particular aspect. If we want, we can be more devious than that. For instance, here, I get away with telling a pretty lame joke.
What's red and invisible?
I don't know.
No tomatoes.
But if we want, we can join the start of that moment to another moment that actually happened later on, and suddenly I seem to die on my arse.
What's red and invisible?
I don't know.
No tomatoes.
We can also use one piece of footage to illustrate 2 completely different points. For instance, here's a shot of me talking and them listening. Doesn't tell you much, but if we run it in conjunction with a positive sounding soundbite, suddenly it takes on a different meaning.
And he's quite attractive in a kind of weird, quirky way. He's very engaging. You know, he captures your attention. Quite like that.
And if we change that soundbite, well, suddenly the meaning changes with it.
God, where to start? It just goes on and on and on and on, and he just takes everything out of context and onto a whole different tangent, and it's just like, yabba, yabba, yabba.
We can use these techniques to tell almost any story we want. We can make it look as though Ashleen's bored of me, or we can take 2 shots that happen sometime apart and combine them to make me look like a lecherous scumbag.
Of course, that's all artifice. In reality, Ashleen and I have been married for 2 years and are very, very much in love.
Ever and ever, forever and ever, you'll be the one that shines on me like the morning sun.
All right, that's a lie as well. We had to pay her just to turn up. And even then we had to prop a picture of Richard Madeley up in her eye line so she could pretend it was him she was hugging and not me. God, I don't know what it is. The pussy loves that Maidley. I can't say that. Ow! Now here's stand-up legend Stuart Lee talking about teenagers then and now. Ow! Ooh! Ow!
If you look at the depictions of teenagers in television today, they're kind of selfish, avaricious, out for themselves. They're also kind of confident and sassy and cool, and they're really, really at home with sex and drugs. If you look at portrayals of teenagers in the 70s, in, say, something like Children of the Stones or The Changes, they're really terrified of the world, and they're uncomfortable and alienated and alone. And I think that is much truer to what it's really like to be a teenager than the way you see them in Skins. Children of the Stones is set in a village with a prehistoric stone circle about it in the mid-70s, 1976, where an astrophysicist has to go and do some research there with his son, Matt. And they gradually uncover this conspiracy where everyone in the village is being taken over by a kind of mind ray, which is connected to a black hole in space. Henrik in Children of the Stones is an astronomer gone bad who's using his power for evil. And he realises pretty quickly on that Matt is his intellectual equal and the force that he has to vanquish to hold control of the village.
Very perceptive, that son of yours. Perceptive and formidable.
Changes begins with images of buildings falling down, stuff exploding and hills collapsing over this weird kind of mid-70s German progressive rock soundtrack. It's about a sudden fit of madness that overtakes Britain where all the adults decide that all machines and technology have to be smashed. And then they flee. And Nikki, a teenage girl, gets left behind by her parents and has to try and look out for herself in this world where all values have been overturned.
You shouldn't be here. Everybody's gone from here. Either gone or died.
Died?
Skins opens with loads of shots of funky young people, proceeds to depict their vile, selfish, misogynist lives with kind of horrible, hip, sassy language. And there's just a degree of cynicism in the characters and in the way that the programme is put together.
For Christ's sake, Tony!
The opening 5 minutes of Skins is just this pointless invective between the Harry Enfield father and the horrible little rat-faced son. I really want the Harry Enfield dad to just get that kid and punch his face in. Tony! So here's something that's happened in 30 years. Look how the kids in Skins greet each other, right? By fondling each other's genitals under a table. This is how children should greet each other, like in Children of the Stones.
Hello. Hello. Can we have a ride? Where to? Oh, just round the village. Show you the sights.
It's interesting looking at the different challenges that face the children in these programmes. In The Changes, for example, Nikki has to find her way alone through a Britain that is in a kind of apocalyptic meltdown. And in Skins, Sid has to go and try and get some dope from a dope dealer in a brothel so that he can get a girl so catastrophically spliffed up that she'll have sex with him without realising who he is. I'm really glad I'm not a teenager watching TV for teenagers now, because I would feel really left out by something like Skins. But there's something really comforting for, like, nerds and weirdos about things like Children of the Stones and The Changes, things that make you feel less alone. And that's a really great thing that art can do, whereas I think something like Skins would make me, as a teenager, feel more alone.
Number 4, and it's not fair to have a pop at kids unless they're as irritating as these two precocious sods.
Kids love a treat. Kids love to stay up late.
Oh.
At number 3, picture the prick. You don't have to, here he is.
You know, I'm a sensible sort of bloke.
No, you're not. You're a poor man's Neil Morrissey.
Jack, watch where you put that skateboard. No. We've got the odd loan here, the odd credit card there.
That's laundry, you tit.
Now here's Grace Dent looking at soaps and romance.
The element that I love the most is romance and sex in soap. I just love this relentlessly bleak image of love. There isn't very many happy ever afters, just lying and cheating and crying and sobbing and kind of small arguments over washing up, which kind of eventually escalates to someone getting their head stoved in with a blunt object. some couples in soap that just seem destined to wander the earth together, and no matter what heinous travesty they visit upon each other, they're just kind of like, they'll snap back together. Ken and Deirdre are a good example of a couple who don't appear to have any kind of lust or kind of sexual longing for each other, and they're both actually quite physically repulsive. You've got Ken, who's got this kind of Mr. Whippy hairdo and like a face like a terribly depressed, like sharp-eyed dog, and then you've got like Deirdre. She's got these widescreen glasses and, you know, this kind of weird, like kind of 40-a-day smoker's drawl.
That's what you think, isn't it?
But there's something that they just obviously found each other irresistible. Martin and Sonia are another kind of perpetually depressed, doomed couple who have split up hundreds of times and always get back together again.
Right, yeah, because I'm really stupid, ain't I, son? I mean, all I ever wanted was a wife. I mean, you didn't know. You couldn't make your mind up whether you wanted to play your trumpet or read a book or be a lesbian.
Because I had to find something else.
Martin first made Sonia's heart flutter back when they were teenagers, when he kind of robbed her of her virginity and got her knocked up and then kind of shouldered her into giving the child up for adoption. But that was just mere flirtation. It was when he came back afterwards and ran over her boyfriend and killed him, that's when she realised that's the man for me. Les and Scylla Battersby on Coronation Street are a particularly grubby, dirty version of this kind of boomerang couple that just keep coming back for more all the time. Their relationship just seems to be built on filthy, carnal rutting, and it's quite revolting because they fight all the time, and, you know, Les is this kind of shouty, blinky man who basically likes status quo and pork pies. And Scylla, she always reminds me of this kind of like mis-sewn kind of Avenue Q puppet who's kind of been struck by lightning and came to life one day.
Do you know what I fancy?
What?
A couple more pints. And then back to ours for a bit of afternoon delight. And then a big plate of fish and chips.
You don't get that in Florida.
The only people in soap today who seem to give themselves and give their hearts freely and purely to love are like the OAPs. Big Mo Slater in EastEnders is one of the most terrifying sexual predators in soap.
Charlie!
No!
I thought you was at work!
God, I wish I was!
It just seems like no man is safe. You know, you can just see that all she wants to do is change into one of those non-flame retardant negligees that she sells on her stall and drags some poor misfortunate Twinkie into bed with her. It's not a nice thought.
At number 2, real men don't use moisturiser, but try telling this overcompensating twat.
Refreshed, revitalised, ready to face whatever the fast-moving world of today throws at me.
I can think of something to throw at you.
And at number 1, there's zero tolerance for these absolute wankers.
So why can't all the good things in life come without downsides? Like girlfriends without the 5-year plan. Bras without the fumbling.
Yeah, or rad breaks without the pricks. Love isn't easy, and when it goes wrong, it's like having a cheese grater scraped across your soul. You stagger around with a heart full of wet sand, and everywhere you look, you see cruel reminders of the love you lost. Fortunately, I've got round the problem of love by transferring all my emotional needs onto this oven glove with a face drawn on it. But some people in boring standard relationships aren't quite so lucky, and when things go wrong, they turn to the TV for help, and thankfully it's only too happy to oblige.
Behold the Sex Inspectors, the eye-popping Channel 4 series in which 2 self-appointed shagspurts root around in couples' bedrooms. But just who are these nosy Parkers?
Tracy Cox is a best-selling author and body language expert.
Alright, so she'll know what this means.
Here's the other one, Michael Alvear, an agony uncle and full-time eyebrow display unit.
He doesn't really look real, he's like a CGI character. In fact, he was driving me mad for ages until I realised who he looks like.
He's Jed Cake, the eerie virtual comic from the sardonic Jack D's Happy Hour. In this edition, the inspectors are drafted in to help out 34-year-old Sally Ann and her 23-year-old boyfriend Paul. On the surface, their love life couldn't be better. They're engaged to be married, they laugh all the time, and they've got a vast collection of sex toys that resemble weaponry from a futuristic alien war.
Oh God, sorry, I thought it was a severed arm.
Yes, Sally Ann and Paul aren't exactly prudes. They visit sex shops together, they pick their nose with vibrators, and of course they spend tender evenings together watching hardcore pornography while shoveling curry down their throats.
So then, on the face of it, a perfectly normal couple, but clearly something's wrong or they wouldn't have called in the sex inspectors in the first place. So the production team installed cameras around the home, including a heat-sensitive one in the bedroom. So Tracy and Mike can have a good hard peer.
This is not the way to seduce an older woman, or any woman for that matter, to walk into the room, pull your pants down and wave your erection around. It's not going to work, is it?
It worked for Bill Clinton. Yes, it soon transpires that Paul is essentially a sex-mad Jack Russell, who doesn't so much think with his penis as experience all sensation through it. Thankfully, Trace and Mike aren't blind to this, and they assess the situation in a way only true experts possibly could.
He's just dropped his pants and basically put his penis in her mouth. That is not what I call foreplay.
Anyway, having expertly diagnosed the problem, they then step in to dish out equally expert advice.
What I want to show you is an aspect of tantric sex, the Phoenix thrust method. It's based on the number 9, which is associated with strong, powerful male energy.
That's odd, because I think the number 9 looks more like a little drooping willy and balls. Anyway, I'm no expert in sexual arithmetic, unlike Michael, who soon has the couple indulging in hardcore, sweaty, algebraic action.
9 shallow thrusts, 1 deep thrust. 8 shallow thrusts, 2 deep thrusts.
Then take away the thrust you first thought of and wipe your knob on the curtains. Then Michael teaches Sally Ann some exciting new mouth skills.
This is Paul's penis.
He's got a joke on a stick in the middle of his penis.
First thing that we're going to do is the one thing that nobody does in a blowjob.
Ah, now I wonder what this is. Okay, what's the one thing nobody does in a blowjob? One thing nobody does in a blowjob. Oh, I give up. What is the one thing nobody does in a blowjob?
Blow.
Oh, clue was in the question.
I want you to lick from the base to the top of the penis.
Yeah, do bear in mind his might not taste as nice. Anyway, over the next few days, the couple put all this genius advice into practice. The sex toys are thrown away, and the gentle blowing technique certainly raises the temperature in the bedroom.
What are you doing to it?
I think she's trying to inflate your nuts. Best of all, the Phoenix thrust method has clearly worked its magic.
7, 8. At 6, I lost count. At 5, I said, what number are we on?
5. Sex Inspectors is just ultimately downright weird. I suppose it's meant to be titillating viewing, but the end result is about as sexy as a dog blowing off in your soup. Having said that, the Phoenix thrust method has done wonders for my love life. 1 shallow thrust, 2 shallow thrust. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. That's the end of the show and the end of the current series. Bye!
Well, Screenwipe's back later this year with a massively increased budget. And coming up next on BBC4, Mark Lawson fights a horse to the death in a razor-wire Thunderdome.